So yeah, album's been out for a little while now. Seems like the response has been really awesome with it being a debut. I know that that's probably always a little nerve-wracking. How have you felt since it's been released and seeing what everybody's saying?
I'm kind of astonished, you know.
Are you?
Yeah, well, I didn't play music for a long, long time, and you never know.
Yeah.
And I know I'm supposed to have a built-in fan base, but I don't even know if that's who's responding. Uh, but the way they're responding is really the thing that kind of surprises me. I'm glad that people are on board with what I'm doing. The fact that I'm not just trying to pick um, to do exactly what I did before. I mean, to a large extent, I feel like I just picked up where I left off. I'm just doing it all by myself instead of doing it in a band context, or at least I started out doing it that way. Now I really feel like Chuck Lenahan has his voice is very clear on the record, and I love that, and I hope to have more of that in the future. But yeah, I'm really happy and I'm gratified, and again, yeah, I'm a little astonished. I'm waiting for like something to happen,
Waiting for someone to.
you to come out like, what the hell is this guy doing? I especially when you do something that's so not normal for the genre, to do an instrumental record and to do something that's not so tightly within the parameters, especially from the music background that I come from the hardcore scene, that there's definitely a kind of a rigidity to it, which I don't adhere to because I just love all kinds of music, and I don't. Even though I put the moniker New York hardcore on my record, it's much more.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think first of all, people are becoming much more open-minded. It seems that the narrow-mindedness is starting to somewhat dissipate. People are being more open to things that they maybe never would have given a shot before. And instrumentals definitely are something that are a little nerve-wracking, I'm sure, on your end because not everybody gets that right away. Not everybody wants to take the time to listen to an instrumental because they automatically want to hear the lyrics. So I think it's awesome being able to show what you guys can do without lyrics, and you don't need them. You don't, it's not it's it's not something that's missing by any means.
Right. I think instead of people thinking of something being missing, just they should think of it as something has been replaced with something else. Something that they're used to hearing lyrics is replaced with a musical conversation.
Oh,
And bring
definitely.
effort to have the instruments really uh, take lead roles and kind of speak to each other and talk back. Uh, and I feel like it's funny, people have been saying things like, at first I didn't, my knee-jerk reaction was, I don't really know how I feel about this. But then they said once they've listened to it once or twice, they found themselves being able to really relax listening to it,
Hmm.
because there's just something like they don't have to pay attention to words, so they can just let themselves get immersed in the feelings that they're having from the sounds they're hearing. And I've heard that a couple of times, and that certainly wasn't my intention. My intention was just to have a complete musical thought, but that complete musical thought has kind of like left room for people to relax while listening to heavy music, which isn't a normal thing. You're just kind of like, can't go on. But this one, you can just feel the emotion and not have to chant somebody else's words.
Well, there is a lot of emotion built within it too, especially since you have some, piano parts. Some sounds like organ. Is that what it is? An organ as well. Um, yeah, and it's almost like being immersed in a movie without the visuals. But yeah, if you close your eyes, you can get visuals, right? That's kind of what good music can do for you. So I'm not surprised that that's what you've heard.
Dirk, the piano player, and I often use that as an analogy when we're trying to color a part to create an emotion. We say, I always say, I want this to be a different scene in the movie.
Hmm.
Even though we're using the same melody, we might change the key and make it minor or something to make it feel like it's the sad part of the movie or the happy part of the movie. And we definitely use that kind of analogy.
So is that something you would want to do in the future? I mean, some video games are also kind of movie quality. Would you want to do like a soundtrack for a movie or video game or something like that?
I mean, I have a song that I wrote on Grand Theft Auto 4,
Hmm, I didn't
and
know that.
I've never played the game, but apparently when you play it, there's a radio station in the car where you can drive around killing people, and you can change the channel to like hardcore, metal, country, or whatever. And the thing that's really cool for me is that my dad has a song that he wrote on the same Grand Theft Auto 4, but he's on the country station and I'm on the hardcore
Oh
station.
my gosh, that's amazing.
And about writing a soundtrack, I don't really have any interest in doing that unless it was a movie that I wrote and directed myself.
Yeah. Right, which is not out of the area of possibilities with your background.
So, every time I make something, I make it with the kind of with the intent of leading someplace else. So when it came time to make the video for Chaos Magic, the first one, my intent completely was to show the what the movie about the Aggros would be like, what it would look
Mm.
like. I was actually before I decided to put it out in a band context, I was actually writing a script for for a TV show about a band. And in the script, the band was called the Aggros because I had all this music that I was writing, and I couldn't really, I didn't see it getting into a band context and touring and making records and all that stuff. So I thought maybe if I could write this story, it would be original music that the band and the story would play. But once I finished the first song, which was Chaos Magic, I decided to create this music video to show people what the show would look like, you know, and that was my goal. So I always have these kind of artistic aspirations built into the stuff, and a lot of times that helps you get through it. If you can just give yourself a context to just press forward, leaving your ego behind, leaving your persona behind, and just and putting it in a framework that makes it easier to just let go and just do something creative.
Is that still something that you're considering then, is possibly turning it into your own visual directorial thing?
Um, Once I finished the Chaos Magic video, I just looked at it. I was like, I got to put this out. This is great. This is a great song. It's a great video.
Mhm.
This is what I've been waiting for, but I was waiting for the context of a band to put it out. I had spent all this time looking for this traditional band, and then I had what I wanted right in front of me. I'd already done it,
Mhm.
the other people in the room. So the minute I decided to put it out, I was like, what am I going to call the band? And I was like, oh, I guess I'll just call it Aggros, just like in the script. And then I put the song out, and almost immediately the my ambitions to create the show disappeared because I was single-mindedly uh, proud of what I had done just as a songwriter and musician. I was no longer felt the need to kind of like frame it as a story. I mean,
Right.
as the band grows, and I think the possibility of making it into a TV show grows because you know you find some, like I work in the film business anyway. I'm a camera operator on television shows, and I oftentimes, share my music with, directors and producers, and they're usually very, very surprised that I'm even a musician because that's, I do. And and I, one of
That's
one of
so funny to me.
the
'Cause Cro-Mags were huge.
maybe you got to keep that stuff separately. I mean, I've been on sets
Yeah.
many times where someone has said to me, "Wait a second, you're a musician." I'm like, "Yeah, let me send you my video," and then they watch it and they're like,
Oh, you're a good musician.
I can't even believe this. I can't rationalize this music with you because this is not you. And I just look at them and I say, well, you don't know me.
Or apparently, yeah.
And then it's always the same thing. Like a week down the line, they come to me and they're like, and you were in the Cro-Mags? Why did you tell me? And I was like, I don't know. It didn't come up in conversation.
I don't just walk around advertising that to everybody.
But it's funny because I'll work on a TV show or a movie for months, and then I'll have the same dolly grip. The dolly grip is the guy who pushes the dolly. I sit on the dolly with the camera, and they participate in camera operating to a large extent. Like we say we need the camera to move from here to there, and the person pushes this big, 500-pound contraption that I'm sitting on. And the grips are a type of people the same way firemen are a type of people. It's a cultural class. It really is. These guys all work together, and even though they're on set with us, there's very, there's a tight knit cultural thing with the grips, and they're a different kind of fella. And so I often do this thing where like we're working on a show and we'll cut and we'll just be sitting there and there'll be a little lull in the action, and the grip will just look around and go like this. And I'm like, wow, it took you 2 months to say that.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny. That's really funny. So they're just getting to know this whole other person then.
I love that. I mean, when I went into it's funny because years ago I directed a lot of music videos, and at that time I didn't feel comfortable using the cachet of being a musician to get work, even though initially I did, because the guys in Anthrax were really the first people to kind of champion me as a director. And they brought me in to direct things that they could have hired anybody, like big budget concert film. I did. It was like the second thing I ever directed, and I did a music video for that. And just that, I couldn't help that. They called me up and invited me into their world. But subsequent to that, I never strong armed my way. I never talked to bands that I knew about doing videos, except for Typo Negative. That was a different thing because I was close friends with Pete Steele, and I wanted to do a video for Carnival. For years, me and Pete talked about videos, but there was never any money to make them. But it didn't hurt to talk about it. And we were young and we were excited about music, and we could sit around drinking and, we had to talk about something. So we would talk about making music videos. And at one point, it was when they put out the first Typo Negative album. And I, again, we're having one of these enthusiastic conversations, and me and Josh and Pete were talking, and all the songs on that record are really long and they're industrial, and they're not really fit for a single. You know what I mean?
Right.
But Pete is a creative guy, and I was, I'm a problem solver. You think to yourself, a song doesn't really represent an entire album. So why is it that a song has to be exactly in the context that it is on a record to be a single? And thus, a lot of times they shorten them. So with that in mind, the single concept in mind, I still couldn't hear a single on the record, but I could hear a chorus. I was like, this song's got a really great chorus, and this one's got a really great verse. So in my computer, I just did a little edit, and I edited two other songs together into one short song that I thought could be single, just to see if it would work. And then one day I went out and I met with Josh and Pete, and I was like, listen, I got an idea. It's a little bit of radical. Yeah, it's not that radical, because people do singles. I gave him basically the same pitch I gave you, that song doesn't really represent the album. So blah, blah, blah. And I said, I want to take the chorus from this song and the verses from this song, and then that whole big ending of unsuccessfully coping with the, infidelity, and combine them into one song. And it comes out to be four. Before I got the words out of my mouth, Josh was like, the fuck do you think you are? You think you could just arrange our music? And he got really, really mad. And I guess rightfully so. I mean, I won't begrudge him too much, because everybody, especially in a band context, everybody's kind of vying for position. They don't need an outsider coming in and doing what they're, fighting for inches to get.
Right.
But while Josh was screaming out in front of this club in Los Angeles, we were out in LA because Typo Negative was playing a show. I was out there doing a music video, so I just happened to be out there, and I'm talking to them outside the club. It's like Ken Creedy, their manager, Josh, and Pete. And Ken Creedy is like waving his arms around, and Josh, and they're both like yelling at me. And Pete's just standing in the back, like going, "That could work."
I got something.
Was that could work musically? It makes perfect sense. And Josh and Ken looked at him like, "What? You're not actually considering this?" Now, the funny thing about this whole conversation is, you weren't speaking with the label. There was no budget. was no talk in doing a music video. This was just all speculation and fun talk.
Right.
Uh, but we did present it to the label. At the time we knew, I was friendly with Howie Abrams. He gave me one of my first opportunities to do a video for Nuclear Assault. And again, it was just one of those things. Yeah, we're not going to make a video for this album, but when it came time to do the album, do the video for Bloody Kisses, I ended up doing that. So yeah, I'm a filmmaker. I do this for a living. I
Mhm.
television shows. I just did a Walking Dead spinoff that called Dead City. I was the A camera operator. It features Maggie and Negan. It's going to be a great
Yes, I'm excited for that one.
and just that's what I do. I work on TV shows all the time. And that's why I kind of neglected music for such a long period of time because when I left music, it wasn't like I was just sitting around twiddling my thumbs. I
Right.
immediately into working in the film business. And that's a very immersive life. I go onto a movie or a TV show. I work 13 hours a day, 5 days a week for years in a row.
Yes. Right.
The pandemic is open. I like when the pandemic was happening, I thought I was never going to work again. And
Mhm.
then the phone rang, and I haven't stopped working since. But we wrapped a TV show called Evil last Friday night because the writer's strike shut us down. And I was kind of relieved that it. I mean, we only had another week off, a week to go, but I would have jumped right on another TV show. But I'm not doing that. I'm taking the summer off, and I'm going on
Agree.
tour. July 5th is going to be the very first Aggros show at St. Vitus in Brooklyn. And then we're going to do Providence and 4 days in Canada and Philly, Pittsburgh, and Washington, D.C. It's a short one. It'll be 9 shows in 11 days. And and then what happens after that, I don't know.
So
We'll see.
you're open to possibly doing some long or bigger dates coming out west possibly, but not right now. You're kind of sticking closer to home.
Well, I mean, we just booked the tour this way because the people that showed interest right away, I got a booking agent. I had dozens of emails from promoters all over the country, and I just passed them off to the booking agent because I do so much myself. I direct the videos, I edit the videos, I produce the record, I write the songs, I play bass, guitar, and I got to work as a camera operator. So that was just one job I wasn't interested in doing. At least all the other things I do within the scope of the band are creative and I find interesting. I'm a bass player. I was a bass player first before I played guitar. So playing bass on the record was not that big a deal, but I did have to kind of turn off my guitar brain when I did that. And I only played my bass for like 5 months while I was writing and recording the bass parts and didn't want to think like a guitar player at all.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, when I play piano or I come up with piano parts or when I'm making a music video, all that stuff is creative stuff. It's something that I don't really think about as second nature, but I just can't book a tour.
Yeah.
Do it.
Right. It's a different part of the brain for sure.
Right. If I couldn't
So
have been a agent, I would have done it, but I found one quickly.
oh good. Good. So going back to the pandemic, is that when you started deciding that you had that downtime from your regular career, you know? I mean, you kind of are doing a dual career at this point, but um, is that when you decided to start working on this, or when did you decide that you wanted to go back to music part time?
Before the pandemic, I had began to look for the traditional band. I put out ads, I interviewed people, I listened to 1,000 record. Like I would ask people to just make a 1 minute long video of yourself playing your instrument and send it to me. Because my feeling is that if I wanted to be in a band and they said make a 1 minute long video of you playing bass, I would make a 1 minute long video of me playing bass that would get me that gig
Yeah.
or a guitar or whatever. And I was so amazed that I'd say 99% of the people I asked to make the video were like, "Oh, I don't have an iPhone." I'm like, "What do you mean you don't have an iPhone? Everybody has a phone. You have a friend who has a phone? Make they were just coming up with an excuse not to do it." Or
Mm,
others would say, "I don't feel comfortable doing it that way. I'd like a proper rehearsal." And I'm like,
wow.
"Well, I can't spend all the time to audition everybody and be in a room with somebody that I have to sit and struggle with to get them out of the room when I just want
Mm,
to." Because the thing about musicianship, it's not so much about how well you play or but I would like to see instantly whether you know your instrument. but it's to show the spark, that you have like some kind of musical fire. If I'm going to bring you into my musical world, I want you to be able to impress me
Right.
in some way. And if you can't do that in 60 seconds, then you don't have what I think it takes. So I tried to do that, and it only worked to the extent that I found Cobbs, who played drums on the majority of the record. He answered an ad. I actually know the truth is I answered his ad. I was placing so many ads and getting all these knuckleheads that I thought to myself, I haven't even considered reading other people's ads.
Right. That are probably going to be more serious about it.
So I read this ad and it was just like, I'm a drummer. I live in Brooklyn. I love heavy music. Come to my room and play. So I did. I went down and I met Cobbs, and I was just kind of astonished at how good he was, and that he wasn't like famous. Like
Yeah.
this guy's like Dave Lombardo and Joey Jordison, combined, but his own thing, because he really only likes death metal. It's the most peculiar thing in the world. Like if I say, "Oh, can you play this song? Let's make it a little bit more like an AC/DC beat." It's like I hate AC/DC,
Is he a young guy then?
and he means it. No, he's like I guess he's like in his mid-30s or something.
Yeah.
So when I was sort of playing with him, but it was really kind of a struggle because he wanted to do something else, and I had all these songs. Like I walked into his room with like 10 songs written, that I knew how to play, and all I needed was him to learn how to play them, so we could, and then we'd have 10 songs. We would be
Right.
a band,
Hmm.
but he didn't really show all that much interest. Some days he was, and some days he wasn't, but ultimately it just wasn't his cup of tea. But along the lines of doing all that, we were able to record, I'd say 5 songs in his room, slowly over a long period of time because I was working all the time. Weekend would come, I'd say, "Are you available?" And he'd say no. And then 3 weeks later, we'd play. And then eventually we recorded a couple of songs, but most of those songs stayed in Pro Tools files in a hard drive in my desk for years. It
Mm.
wasn't until the pandemic. That's why you brought up what you were saying about the pandemic, because I had, because I wanted to really test the waters with writing new songs, and I'd written Chaos Magic, and I had it completely arranged. And I went into Cobb's studio, and we made a click map. So I recorded the entire thing to a click, no drums, just played all the guitar parts. I played the bass part, and then me and Cobbs talked about what the drums would be, and then we recorded the drums. But by the time we finished recording that song, he was so frustrated with me because I had a very specific idea about how I wanted to do it. That when we started doing the other songs, it was a little less uh, productive and fun. One of the things he kept saying was, "This isn't fun for me." I was like, "Wow, I don't want you to do it if it's not fun." So we basically stopped at some point. But I was able to get these songs recorded, put them in a hard drive, and just literally they sat there for 4 years, I'd say,
Jeez.
until, until the pandemic happened. And
Wow.
that's when I started pulling them out. I had the thing is really kind of odd is the mix of Chaos Magic of the first video that I put up that I posted was just a board mix that Cobbs did.
Hmm.
It wasn't like a thoughtful mix. It was, he's a good mixer, but it wasn't like we spent a lot of time and used all these outboard gear to did a proper mix. But it was just something so raw and so much fire in it. That's the one that I put out when I made the video.
Hmm.
The other songs I had to remix and re-record other stuff. And I spent the pandemic making the video. I probably spent I shot that video for 22 nights because I shot it basically all by myself with one person, with this friend of mine, Scott, helping me, who doesn't know anything about the film business. So it was basically me doing it. He was just enthusiastic and young,
Keeping you pumped up for it.
carried a lot of stuff. And then I spent once the pandemic was over and people were able to see each other, I found this friend of mine, this old friend of mine, Mark, who I didn't even know had a recording studio, and he just wrote me on Facebook, "If you need my studio, come over." And I just began going there every Saturday for a long period of time, and I slowly began assembling these songs. And
This
the
has
next
been a long time in the making.
I had an album. It wasn't a long time in the making, but most bands just end up sitting in a room playing for each other for years before they get the
Right.
opportunity to
True.
go to a recording studio for 2 weeks, and like hopefully they can get it in 2 weeks.
Right.
So I don't know if I took more. I often liken this album to being my first album because all the years that lead up to a band's first album, that's your entire life.
Yeah,
And this album that you make is really a reflection of your entire musical life.
definitely.
And the fact that I've had almost as many years between my last record and the amount of years that I lived before I made my first album seems crazy to me
That
now.
is crazy.
So that this album reflects my musical lifetime, but my musical lifetime, this album was as an adult, mature, sophisticated songwriter, as opposed
Right.
to just kind of like brute forcing my way through it. And play as fast as I can.
All right, right.
Now I basically do that when I still do that. I
You
still say,
have to. You have to. It's part of getting out some of the stuff that you got shoved down or that you're holding in.
exactly. It's the freedom and release. And the pandemic was such a wonder. I mean, I know the pandemic was a terrible thing and people suffered and people died, but man, it was awesome for me. I had the best time. I spent more time with my wife than I ever did
Mm-hmm.
in our entire marriage. We spent
Mm-hmm.
more time during the pandemic, and and for a lot of couples, that was the end of them, and
Right.
it was just the beginning because we belong together
Yes.
and great marriage, and we love each other, and the time we spent together was just the best. And we did so many things. We basically laid the groundwork for what this band would be together. And we also formed a little film production company. We did a bunch of jobs over the pandemic so we could have an income. We just did it without crews. We shot everything with drones.
Oh, that's cool. So does she does film too?
She does now.
She's been recruited.
She's, 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 a, she's in the fashion world. Like she heads marketing departments for fashion companies. When I met her, she worked at Hugo Boss and she worked at Calvin Klein and she worked at Diesel. And then she recently worked for a company, another New York fashion company. And then she just left it. And now she works freelance. She just works, all these companies just call her up and they hire, they're like, it's temporary. And then a year goes by. So, but she also produces events and she produces commercials and segments for these fashion companies. So she's an inadvertent filmmaker,
Mhm.
and so she had all this experience putting together shoots and stuff. So doing that for us was very easy. And we formed this little company. We were doing all these jobs, and we had a regular client. And then one day I got hired to do a TV show again when the pandemic was over, and then I wasn't available and we got a job for like Sprint or something, some big phone company thing. I can't even remember what it was. And I wasn't available to do it. So she did it. She directed it. She directed a web spot for a major corporation. It was pretty cool.
Wow.
But then she started working in another fashion company. I went on the TV show, and our little production company went by the wayside. But she's very capable, and she killed it.
That's awesome. Sounds like you guys both definitely stay really busy. That's cool though that you guys get to have some of those commonalities and be able to use that as probably inspiration and motivation at times.
Yes, it's easier when you have a
For
uh,
sure.
live-in partner.
Yeah. No, for sure. So back to Chaos Magic. I felt like there was a um audible click with the strumming, which I thought was so interesting because that gives it such a raw sound. It's such a live experience, raw sound. I'm assuming that was purposeful, or do you know what I'm talking about? Because I didn't hear it on the other tracks. I just heard it on that one.
Well, I mean, if you think you hear a click check, you don't. What you hear is my right hand. It's definitely an inherent part of my writing style. That was one of the things that was kind of um, unusual for any drummer that I ever play in because the drums are generally written in my right hand. And if you're not playing along with my right hand, you're not playing the song.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes Kyle's would play a really great drum beat, and I go, "That's a great drum beat." But that's not the drum beat for the song. If you'd like me to write a song to that drum beat, I will. But if you agree to play the drum beat to this song, I'll write a song to that drum beat so you can play that. But that's not the drum beat for this song. And you know, so much so that I recorded all of Chaos Magic without drums and all the rhythms, all the snare. Like I do this thing, it's the bass drum and the snare drum written in my right hand, and I do that a lot, especially in the fast songs, because the songs will certainly go off the rails if there's not a rhythmic map,
Right.
the strumming of the right hand. And that, you know, that went with the Chromags too. That's a signature sound of the Chromags is my right hand, you know, the way I write songs. And even, you know, even the bass parts, they just end up being mimics of the bass of the guitar part. And
Right.
I wrote, you know, I wrote many of the early Chromag songs on the bass because when the band first started, I was the bass player.
Right. Right. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah, I kept going. I don't even know how to explain it. I don't even know how to explain the sound, but it was really interesting and really cool to hear. And then yeah, the more that I dived more into it, the more I was just like it's a surprise around every corner, and that's really cool. I love music like that can keep me interested and invested and on my toes. But yet it also has like kind of a jam band element, which I grew up on my dad's record collections, and it was a lot of jam band music. That's what I appreciate. That's what is my favorite. So you have a mixture of the two that just makes it so fascinating and so like cohesive and enjoyable. And the jazz elements are so much fun. And yeah, emotion driven. It's really really cool.
Like, very kind words that's, you know, that was the goal. So hearing you say those words back to me is very gratifying.
You know what though? I have to say, I had gotten an email from Adam Splitter saying, "Hey, would you be interested in doing this interview?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." So I went to click on the Holics, and it was already expired. So I was like, "Gosh, dang it!" So then I started looking through iTunes because that's where usually I buy my albums, and it wasn't on iTunes. And so then I was like, "Gosh, I guess I'll go over to Spotify because I try not to use Spotify for obvious reasons." But then I couldn't find it on Spotify. So then I was like looking on YouTube, and all I could find was the two videos on YouTube. And so it took me a while to figure out how to listen to the whole album in a quick period of time without like running to, the record store and hoping that it was going to be there. So is that obviously was something that you guys did on purpose, and I think it's really smart to keep it off of those platforms.
Yeah, I will never have my music will never be streamed
Yeah,
ever.
I get it.
Streaming is the death of music.
Right.
I mean, just in terms of the fact that it's taught everybody to think music is free.
Yes, right.
Music is free and it's worthless.
And you know what's so crazy? I say this a lot, but music is such an important part of, I mean, the majority of people's lives. It's therapy away from therapy. It's, it gets your emotions out. It gets you excited. It gets you motivated. It gets you pumped. Like there's so much to music that helps the world. It's the one language that everybody speaks, and our musicians just don't get the respect and financial backing that they should, with as much as we get from it. It's just crazy to me. And when I get that, like obviously financiers are tougher nowadays than they have been in the past, and I understand that. But also, why would you not want to be helping your musicians out to keep the music going? If music goes away, like we're definitely screwed at that point. Nobody's
And
getting along.
records last, you know, a lifetime. The effect that Van Halen one had on me when I was 15 years old is the same effect it has on me now. And I only
Mhm,
had to pay $7 for it or whatever it was. And
mhm.
it astonishes me that someone will go into a gas station and dish out $40 for something that will get their car to move for a week,
Yeah,
not dish out $10 for a record that will last them a lifetime.
right,
Go into a Starbucks and spend $6 on a cup of coffee.
right,
And then 2 hours later, spend $6 and get a second cup of coffee. And that's more money than you'd spend buying a record that's going to last the rest of your life. When people ever say to me, that's too much for a record, I go, I can't, I I can't even have a conversation with you. I
Right.
what I can do to convince you, because then the next thing you do is you pull into a gas station and spend $40 for some gas. And I know
Right.
you need the gas to get there, but like I need the music to get there. I need
Yeah.
Van, I need Rush Hemispheres, I need Master of Puppets, I need Iowa, I need all those records to keep me
Yeah.
going. Uh, and the fact that they only cost me $15 each is
Hmm.
astonishing. But again, it's like I said, that the music business has taught people that music is worthless.
Yeah.
And as a
Yeah.
result, obviously much of popular music is just garbage.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. It's pretty devastating what's happened with the music industry. I mean, I think there obviously with anything else, there are some positives, but overall, it's just not like it used to be where, these musicians are able to somewhat comfortably live off of doing what they do to help us get through life.
And I'd rather sell, as many record, I'm not on a record label. I'll never be on a record label. I don't understand what record labels are anymore.
Mhm. Right.
But I would rather sell them one at a time to fans at gigs. My records are not in record stores. They're in some record store. They're in Cortex in Berlin. They're in Revelations in New York City.
In
But
Berlin.
they're not really anywhere else. But we live in the Amazon world. My record is available. You can buy it online. It'll be delivered to your house, just like if you bought it from Amazon. I have CDs, I have vinyl, and we launched a Bandcamp page after the fact, after I was sold on the idea of Bandcamp, because Bandcamp is
For
uh,
the bands.
yeah, and it's a familiar way for people to listen to music that usually stream or listen to music on their phone. You get a Bandcamp app and you can listen to the music on your phone, but you have to purchase the album. And Bandcamp has a thing where you set the price at like $10, but the fan can spend as much as they want on it. If they
Hmm.
want to give you $15, they can. Yeah, but all I ask is $10, a reasonable amount for a digital record, and
Hmm.
it's great. And you can stream the songs 3 times and then you have to purchase it, which I think is reasonable too. You can go and listen to it, and then if you really like it, it can be part of your life. And if you don't like it, it doesn't make a difference.
All right. Ah. Oh my gosh, it's so crazy though. It takes away from. I remember when I was younger going to the CD stores at the time, and I would look at the thank yous. It was my favoriteest thing to do. And every payday I would go and do it, but I'd look at the thank yous of the bands that I really liked, and they always were thanking other bands usually in there. And so then I'd go check out what that band is, see what category it was under. The cover obviously made a big difference. So I'd look at the cover, see if I liked the artwork, see if it was under the genre, that I was preferring at the time. And then it was a gamble. It was like, well, I hope this ends up being something that I like. And so that's how I found so much of my favorite music. It's so unfortunate that people don't get that like my son doesn't get that experience.
I know the having the artwork associating with an album, with that collect, what an album is a collection of songs that represent a period of time for an artist, and having a piece of artwork to reflect that is a powerful thing. And if
Hmm.
you only listen to stuff on your phone, like I notice people don't even seem to know song titles and stuff because it just plays in loops and stuff like that. But like holding a record in your hand and reading the song titles and the lyrics and the thank yous, I read the thank yous too.
Yeah.
I love the fact that on my record I was able to have a thank you list. I have this like really big thank you list. I was actually starting to cut it down. I would have thanked more people. I'll have more people to thank next time, because there are so many nice people have come forward and lent themselves to the record. Like the guy who did my album cover, great album cover, like as cool an album cover as I've ever seen. And he's just a guy that I know on Facebook, who we love music, and he befriended me, and he's a New Yorker. And then next thing you know, you chat with people you haven't met. Like I chat with 5,000. That's how many I'm allowed.
Right.
With all these people, and one day I just noticed that he posted this artwork on his, like they have the background behind what do they call that? Anyway, the background picture they have on
Yeah, I don't
Facebook.
know what it's called either.
This
Background.
this really cool drawing, and I was like, "Hey, what is that? Did you draw that?" And he said, "Yeah, I drew it for my son. I gave it to him as a gift." And I,
Oh,
okay, so like, are you like an illustrator? What do you do? And he goes, "Well, I just do these, because I love making them." He goes, "I can make one for you." He goes, "I can make it just like this one." And I said, I mean, to look at it, it's like incredible detail, all the buildings and the windows and stuff. He goes, you notice that all the buildings have storefronts with store names and stuff like that. If you give me a list of places that you like in New York, like places you've been to, restaurants you like, places you hung out in your life, he goes, I'll draw them all in. So I sent him a list, like CBGBs, all these bars that I hung out in, clubs, even like, we're both artists. I went to, I have a degree in fine arts, and, all artists in New York, we all used to buy our art supplies at this place called Pearl Paint on Canal Street. He put Pearl Paint in there. He didn't even ask me about that one. I thought that was very cool. He put Pearl Paint, he put in this restaurant that me and my wife had our first date at, called the Aggros,
oh,
that kind of thing. So the whole thing is very personalized to me, but he basically did it just like the one he did for his son. And it didn't take him long at all. I mean, maybe a month went by, and this poster tube arrived on my door. And I popped it open. I'm like, what's this? And I unfold this thing. And it's like, it's huge. I was going to look around and see if I had it. It's like this big, this hand drawn thing. And he didn't ask me for anything.
oh.
He just said, this is my gift to you. Thank you so much for making music I like. And I hadn't even decided I was going to make an album yet. So I had this thing that I kept looking at, and I was talking to him on the phone. I was like, the way you designed it, I don't really know where I could put the logo. And every time I try to put some writing on it, the whole thing's too busy. I don't know if I can use it. And he was like, yeah, I understand what you mean. He goes, but you like it, right? And I go, yeah, I love it. And it's triangle, it's not square, you know, and I wasn't really too, in art school, I was a illustrator and a painter. I not really big on computer art, so I just immersed myself in Illustrator, Adobe Illustrator, and I just dragged that artwork, MP3, not an MP3, but like a really well scanned version of that. And then I realized that I could make it square very easily. And then all of a sudden I was like, maybe I just won't have any writing on the cover. It'll be like Led Zeppelin 4. And I was like, yes. So I dragged the logo in, and immediately the logo, right? Actually, I put the logo at the top. And my wife walks in the room, she sticks her head in, she goes, put the logo in the middle. And she stepped out. I was like, what? That's so obvious. She's like, put the logo in the middle. It's like, dropped it in the middle.
Well, she's right.
Okay.
She's making a ninja attack. That's funny.
This other artist, this guy, Andrew Montserrat, I'm going to grab the record so people know what I'm talking about. Yeah, see, I had the logo up here, and then there
Yeah.
was the way the buildings all met up here was kind of like like a mouth, and which is cool, but it drew your attention right there, and it kind of looked like a death metal logo, and I don't know how I felt about that, but as you can see, like that's A7 upside
Oh
down.
my gosh.
It's a club that we used to all play. It was a little storefront club, and
I
St.
see.
Mark's.
Oh,
Uh, there's just all these places. CBGB's, of course, the Village Idiot, Seek and Destroy, Love Saves the Day, pizza parlors we loved. And then, I got contacted by this Andrew Sawyer's in London. He's like a comic book artist. He does Judge Dredd and all kinds of cool comic book stuff. And he said, "Oh, I'd love to do a piece of artwork for you." And I said, "Oh, I would love that." I was like, "Cool, make me look like Judge Dredd." And he just took a still out of the Chaos Magic video and then did this. It's not quite
oh,
Dredd, but it's Judge
it's
Dredd.
still pretty awesome.
Yeah. And then my friend from high school, Sean Taggart, he did
So
this.
cool.
He did like four different versions. He kept sending to me, and finally we landed with this one, which I absolutely love.
They're all so cool. That totally is like a punk slash thrash look.
Sean, he's an artist of note. He drew the album covers for both Carnivore albums.
Mm-hmm.
He's and Typo Negative's first band. He did
Mm-hmm.
their first two albums. He did a Prong album cover. He did the Crumbsuckers Life of Dreams album cover. The Jerky Boys, those comedian guys.
Yeah, I can definitely see it from that.
But yeah, the whole experience of having when people listen to these songs and they think of this cover, to me that's important.
Yeah,
It separates things into chapters, and gives the work not only a timely context but a regional context. This is New York music. I'm a native New Yorker, and I absolutely 100% believe that the kind of music I make is a result of being forged from these city streets.
yeah.
So,
It's a big, I mean, it's been a big musical city for many, many years. A lot of amazing artists and bands have come out of there. Boise, we actually have a pretty incredible local metal scene here too, but you don't hear many bands that really make it that come out of Idaho.
well, I'm definitely paying in the new video. It's for the song "Skateboard Fight." I'm paying tribute to that kind of musical legacy of New York because, the first two videos, I really wanted them to feel like it was the same night. Like one video ends and it could just be somewhere else in New York City at that same night with the same full moon, and that all that stuff is happening. I kind of had initially had the idea that I wanted the whole album's worth of videos to all feel like some dark full moon night in New York City, and exploring the way New York looked to me when I was young, because it looks very different now. When I was a kid, it looked like the Warriors, and now it looks like Gossip Girl. So it's kind of difficult to 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 make it look like the Warriors, but I definitely feel like I accomplished that with Chaos Magic because the Williamsburg Bridge is like one of those unchanging New York things. It just, 50 years from now, you'll walk across the Williamsburg Bridge, it'll look exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I chose that and the light and everything. But as I moved forward with the New York experience, the New York night experience, I tried to, I'm trying to continue that. So I had to come up with some new ideas. And one of the things is like I discovered New York. I mean, I didn't get my driver's license until I was 35. I
Oh
never thought,
wow. Well, yeah,
I'd
no
never get
reason to.
navigated the city streets on a skateboard. So that's one of the big reasons why I like to show New York from the point of view of somebody rolling through the city on a skateboard or a bicycle, because that's really how we see it. And also in the City Kids video, all the shots are looking up at buildings. I never like went up on the top of a building and shot down. I always shot up at a building because that's how we always see the city. We're always looking up.
Right.
But one of the, we do have a lot of rich musical history, and one of the ways that we pay tribute to that musical history is we name streets after musicians. And there are quite a lot of them in New York. We have Joey Ramone Place, we have Wu Tang District,
Hmm.
Run DMC, Jam Master Jay Way, Charlie Parker Boulevard. We have all these, and I thought, oh, I'm skateboarding through the city. It'd be great if like I came to a stop and like looked at these signs. And initially I thought, oh, I don't know how exciting a street sign is going to be in a music video, but it's coming out pretty good. I shot,
Yeah.
I got 3 of them in the video now, but I still got to go out to Queens and get a Jam Master Jay Way. And the other thing is, oddly enough, I'm connected to a lot of them. You know, Charlie Parker was a jazz musician of note, one of the most famous jazz musicians in the world, and Avenue B is named after him. But oddly enough, I'm a music publisher and I publish Charlie Parker music.
Ha.
It was left to me and my brothers by my father, who met Parker in the 50s, and they developed a relationship enough that when he passed away, or when he was close to passing away, he let his wife Doris know that the only man that he ever trusted in the music business was my dad, and that
Wow.
even any help that she should go to him. And together they formed this company, Charlie Parker Music, to
Mm.
basically host all of Charlie's music And then at some point she lost interest. It was just too much work for her. And she sold her side of it to my dad, and he left it to me and my brothers. So when I
Wow.
shot that sign and I have that sequence in there, it's a personal connection. And when I shoot the Jam Master Jay Run DMC one, I have a personal connection to that too because I directed a Run DMC music video. I just wish there was a Typo Negative Street.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm surprised there isn't. You just make one, right? Then you just kind of video or whatever cinematography one in because it should be there.
There's a Adam Yauch park. I'm going to do that. He was an old friend of mine. When we were teenagers, we were friends. So I feel connected to him, and I'd like to. And then the fact that they have ignoring the fact that he is a major part of American popular culture. For me, he's just that kid that I hung out on the street corner with, and the fact that a park is named after him is pretty cool. So I'm going to put that in my video. And who else? Oh, and there's other ones that I'm not connected to. Duke Ellington. I haven't decided whether I'm going to put him in there. And then I started to discover that there's all these actors that have street names like Humphrey Bogart, and I love Humphrey Bogart, but I don't know how that'll play in. So I think I'm just going to stick with the musicians. But I think
Well,
it's a theme that's going on with the new music video, and the new one's a lot shorter than the other songs. It's only like
yeah, 3 something minutes.
so this one's coming together quick. I started shooting it about 3 months ago, but then I broke my toe, so I'm just starting to shoot it again. I'm hoping to have it done to launch our tour.
Yeah,
Uh, so hopefully it'll be a release date of maybe July 1st, maybe, or maybe
awesome.
we'll release it on the 4th of July and then have that launch our tour.
If you ended up doing videos for the ones that are more piano driven, you can start off with the Humphrey Bogart, have it black and white, and then when it gets more into the harder parts, then you can switch to color.
Good idea, just like with Dirk, the piano player, wasn't in the City Kids video, but just because of circumstance, it was just like timing,
Yeah,
and the drummer moved away from New York, and Roy Mayorga, who plays on Fear View Mirror, he lives in Los Angeles, and Cobbs lives in North Carolina, South Carolina,
oh,
and Pete Asarisi, who plays on Ghosts of New York, he lives in Los Angeles. So whenever I was shooting, I just never had the opportunity to get any of them in the video. And Dirk wasn't around when I did the City Kids video, but when I do the video for Fear View Mirror, I will certainly feature Dirk. And when I do
awesome.
the video for Best Destiny, there's quite a bit of piano in Best Destiny.
Yes. So you're planning on doing videos for all of them.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Awesome.
I mean, I do them myself. I don't have to pay someone to do it. To me, it's just like I can watch TV tonight, or I can go out and shoot.
Yeah.
To me, it's just a part of my life. I can go. I own the cameras. I have a light kit. I light things. I'm a member of the Cinematographers Guild. I know how to do that kind of thing. I
Right.
can and to me, it's not a big deal. I enjoy every second of it. Like the other day, because I went out and I shot the Charlie Parker sign, which is in Manhattan. I live in Brooklyn. And then I shot a little sequence of me skateboarding up to the sign in the crosswalk, and the camera was pointing straight down onto the street. And I didn't really like what I shot. And then I was just standing by my window. I looked at the window. I was like, oh, yeah, we have the same exact crosswalk. I'm just going to go shoot it over here.
Ah,
I went out there the other night, like 3 nights ago, and I set up the camera and I pointed it down the crosswalk. I was like, it looks exactly like Avenue B. No one's going to know.
oh, how cool. Well, now everyone's gonna know.
Movie magic. I
No,
mean,
that's
I
really
mean, also, if I shot the video over 22 nights, then it all looks like one night. So.
right. It sounds like it's like a darker, more sinister Dazed and Confused. Since it's got all the musical aspects. Or what was that skater movie from the probably 90s? I can't remember what it was called. Yeah, I can't remember.
And also, I just wanted, cool visual things. I skateboarded all my life, and just rolling around on a skateboard didn't really appeal to me initially, until I found these lighted wheels online. I was like, oh, and I actually I had them on my board before, but they were like they didn't even light up anymore. Two of them didn't light up, and I started shooting the just like shooting stuff with my iPhone on my underneath my skateboard to see how it looked like lit up. But I only had the two lit up wheels, and I was like, it's kind of lame. And then I just one day I went online and I found brand new ones and I put them on and they were so bright. And I started just shooting test stuff going out. That's what I'll do sometimes. I'll go out if I get an idea and I'll just shoot a test. But unfortunately, I mean, not unfortunately, fortunately, 99% of the times when I shoot a test, it ends up in the video.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
So
a
I shot
time saver.
all those shots of the glowing wheels with the water splashing in the City Kids video. That was just a test. And it just looked so
Just
good. And
worked out.
I shot those shots on an iPhone.
Wow.
I shot all the rest of the video on a proper camera. But if you just stick a shot in quickly and it's lit well and it's lit, with contrast. We don't light for exposure. We in the film business we light for contrast.
Mm.
Like, so this side is lit and this side is dark. So I always end up doing that even on a test to see how I can light it successfully in such a weird context of skateboard wheels and splashing water. And what I did was I just stood there until a car came. I was shooting in this like little narrow road that was like covered by an arch, so it was really dark. There was no street light, and the only light was the light that was lighting up the wheels that were.
Mm-hmm.
And that looked kind of cool, but it didn't really give you any depth. So what I did was I just waited for a car to turn the corner and come down the thing, and then I skateboarded out in front of them and then rolled through that puddle. And then all these cars were like, "What are you doing?" And I did it like 4 or 5 times. But I made sure they saw me. But I rolled out in front of their car, and they had to slow down because my skateboard's clearly not as fast as the car. And then I would roll through the puddle holding my iPhone, and then I would like roll off to the side of the road. Like, "Thank you very much," and they would go by. And then I looked at the footage. I was like, "Oh my god, that looks incredible."
I risked my life for something that thankfully ended up awesome. So the strings too, you have some really cool visuals of the strings in both the videos, which was really cool. I think that was a cool angle as well, and a cool thing to see the wobbling. That's the word that came up to my mind. That's not the right word, but
A lot of things in life happen in little microcosms, and I just felt like seeing my pickups in the dirt and the blood. When I took that lens and I put it on the pickup and I could see like flaked blood from years and years of playing my guitar, like I felt like that was something that was worth seeing.
yeah,
So I put a lens on it.
super
And
cool.
my wife, Barblin, is telling me that I have to stop.
Yeah, we've been talking for a while. I appreciate so much you taking so much time with me. It's been so much fun talking to you. The album's really, really amazing. I hope it continues to do as well as it is, which I'm sure it will.
Thank you. It was a pleasure speaking with you too, and I hope the record does well too. And anybody watching this, if you're a fan of music and you want to support a band, my band, you can do something simple. It doesn't cost you anything. Just go to my YouTube page, youtube.com/the Aggros, Aggros, and just subscribe and watch the videos and enjoy them. But subscribing makes a difference because promoters, when they're booking bands, they look on your YouTube page and they see how many subscribers you have, and that's when they book a band. So you can lend a little bit of a hand and do that. And if the music appeals to you, please get the record. I worked really hard on it, or worked harder on it than I have on anything in my life, and I'm proud of it, and I think you might like it.
Love it. Love it. All right, awesome. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon.
You too. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.